Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. Howdy, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Guitar Gate Live. Sorry I was out last week. I was on vacation with the kids in Michigan and took a week off.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, it is nice. So, today I have Evan Kornblum.
Hello.
Or is it Kornblum? I'm going to ask you again.
Kornblum is fine.
And you are from the band Pocket Bells.
That's correct, yeah.
And so you do that full-time, and you're also an engineer full-time.
That's correct. Yep.
And so why don't we start with Pocket Bells and kind of, you can tell everybody what that band is, because that's kind of your brainchild, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so when did you start it? What is the band, and what's going on now with it?
Pocket Bells, I started about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and I had all these songs just in my back pocket, and I just wanted to record all these ideas I had, and I went and did them, and people seemed to respond to it, so it
Yeah.
just made sense to say, why don't we focus on this thing? So I ended up putting a band together, and we recorded a second EP, and people like that one too. So we just put out a third EP a couple months ago. And it's a 6-piece band, so 2 guitars, drums, bass, lead vocals, piano, and I also double up on synthesizer. So I've got a couple synths that I rack.
So wait, so you play guitar and synth?
Yeah.
I also saw a lot of pictures of bass, and I was trying to find a promo picture too. So do you play bass in the band as well?
I do play bass, but not in Pocket Bells.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but I've got 2 synths that I double rack, so I'll play both at the same time, and then quickly switch, grab my pick, and switch and play a little guitar, and then switch back and forth.
Now, did you play keys first or guitar first?
As a child, I started piano lessons when I was 5.
Really?
And I took piano lessons my entire childhood. I'm terrible.
Really?
I'm terrible at
How
piano.
can you be terrible if you started at 5?
I don't know. It's one of those things where I always liked music, and I always knew I wanted to be involved in it.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite want to stop taking piano lessons, but the way that it was taught, the traditional classical method
Was it
of
like
teaching,
just the regimented?
right, play these pieces, and it never quite gripped me until I was like 12 or 13 and I got a guitar. And your first lesson, they're like, hey, here's 3 chords, and here's why that makes a song.
Yeah.
And then suddenly
and
it
here's a
clicked.
song.
Right. So I switched over and started playing guitar a lot more through middle school and high school.
Yeah.
Because I was able to I was taught how to write a song in guitar.
Yeah.
And never once did a piano teacher say, oh, well, here's a 1-4-5, and here's how that applies to music. It's like writing pop.
Yeah, it's so true, and I feel like teachers struggle with that, and people tend to teach the way they were taught. I feel, and I think like a lot of extremely accomplished players, like I could never imagine playing like how those classical people,
Yeah, I don't know.
even like really accomplished jazz players play. I can't really wrap my head around it, but at the same time, it's like I feel like they feel like you have to start at the beginning. And this step thing, where I feel like, especially with guitar, my background teaching is like you gotta give people something to take home, so they can get over those initial hurdles fast, so they fall in love with it, and then they'll go back and they'll put the time in and they'll really try to get better.
Yeah,
You know
if
what I
somebody
mean?
then, once they can play their favorite pop tune or even write their own, then they'll go back and say, now I'm curious about how to read music.
Yeah, right.
But not everybody wants to or needs to know how to read music. There's
Yeah.
tons of great artists who that's just not part of what they do.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them any less of a musician. And I think that the way teachers are teaching now, it's starting to change.
Yeah.
And I think in this age, people are starting to say, you know what, let me teach this kid how to play his favorite rock and roll tune.
Yeah.
And then if in a year from now he's curious about how to play classical music, then let his or her interest dictate how the lessons are run.
Yeah, no, and then that makes total sense. There's an online drum teacher who I kind of look up to doing my online guitar teaching thing. His name is Mike Johnson, and his basic approach to this is that our real competition is like lacrosse or like baseball or like video games. You know what I mean? It's like if you just give the kids what they need to want to come home and sit at the piano or pick up the trombone or whatever it is, and go from there, the rest can kind of be built upon, but you gotta let them love it first.
Yeah.
And especially when they're kids, it's easy to love sports first because it's you get it. You hit the ball. You get it. It's that fast. Where like the initial hurdles, especially on guitar, are substantial. So that's why teachers, guitar teachers are guilty of it, starting with songs, because it's kind of what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, go back to Pocket Bells.
Sure.
Be the first of many tangents.
I love a good tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The band is great. We're having fun. We've got a lot of gigs coming up and just chipping away and seeing what we can do with it.
So, but what kind of so what's it? I know you can't explain what it sounds like, and we'll drop a link in here so you guys can hear it. But try your best to explain what it is.
So it is definitely indie rock.
Okay.
It's radio friendly, 3 to 4 minute songs with hopefully a catchy hook.
Is anything radio friendly these days?
I think radio friendly can refer more to the format. The fact that it's between 3 and 4 minutes and it has a chorus that comes back 2, 3, or 4 times in the piece.
Gotcha.
So formatting wise, it is radio friendly.
Yeah.
We have a female singer, Piper Greenbaum.
Gotcha.
Amazing, lifelong musician with ridiculous talent. We get along really great, super collaborative. So we collaborate on all the music, and then we bring it to the band, and then we arrange it for the band, and we might write something just on a piano and voice, but then we bring it to the band, and we figure out, all right, dueling guitars, or maybe I'm just doing synth pads. Starting to put the drums and bass in, and it's really fun when we could put the arrangement
Yeah.
to the song.
Now, how hard is that for you?
The arrangement, well, it's my favorite part. Once I have, A, B for my sections, that's hard. But then coming up with the arrangement, all right, I want the piano in the chorus, but no piano in the verse. But then the guitars will be opposite. We'll put, the guitar in the verse, but not in the chorus.
And I feel like that kind of mindset kind of lends itself to the engineering part.
I think it
that
does.
You do. Yeah.
I think it's the same part of my brain that kind of thinks that way.
That makes sense to me.
It can both be so challenging to the point where I'm just pulling my hair out trying to figure out how to arrange a song, but at the same time, it's part of the process that I thrive on. And to really, all right, we've got the song, but how can we create the excitement?
Yeah.
Where's it big? Where is it small? And, is everybody playing, or is it just, is the second verse just piano and voice?
Yeah.
Because the drums don't have to play the whole song.
Right.
And I think that's a common trap that people fall into.
Yeah.
It's just everybody plays the whole song.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's great for some songs, but you can't do that 100% of the time. And, sometimes I bring a song to the band and I'm like, yeah, everybody plays the whole thing, and my bass player will look at me and be like, no, somebody has to drop out at some point.
Yeah.
Where's the big part?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh yeah, you're right.
I love that. Where's the big part?
Yeah.
What a simple question, but that's the truth. Where's the big part?
I was talking with a friend of mine last night, and she was saying she went to a concert and saw this band play, and that the recordings are great, the songs are great, but live it's just flat.
No dynamics?
Right.
Just straight through.
And I think that's also something that I sometimes find myself guilty of, but fortunately I've got these great musicians in my band who call me out and be like, hey, this song doesn't have a big part. It just needs to go somewhere. It just needs to rise a little bit before it comes back.
Yeah.
And through that collaboration, we can kind of chip away at it until it feels good, both in terms of what's the recording going to sound like, and how's it going to cause an audience to react in a room.
Yeah.
Because when we're at the club playing for 200-300 people, I want everybody tapping their toes and dancing a little bit.
Yeah, that's how you know it works.
Exactly, but it's collaborative to find the formula.
Well, that was my next question, and I guess they're all kind of unanswerable questions. But so you and what is her name?
Piper.
Piper. So you guys are the lead writers, and then you arrange with the band. What's that process like? Because to be totally frank with you, I've never really worked in an original environment like that, where writers came with the tune and then everybody kind of figured it out together. How collaborative is that? In other words, like, how much of each person do you encourage them to kind of come up with their own stuff versus, this part is here, this part is here? Like, how much of that is?
I think every song's a little different.
Yeah, I'm sure that
songs.
How could that not be?
Some songs I come in where it's like, hey, this is the piano part.
Yeah.
But other times I'll come in and say, all right, here are the chords, and I want this type of idea, but I do want each band member to be able to express themselves and play with their own voice.
Mm-hmm.
Because a band is, I think at least for my band, what makes it successful is that each player can speak with their own voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be something where like the chorus has a part, but I don't know what the verse is going to be, and I can just leave it up to that musician to write their own part for the verse, because that way everybody can own it a little bit.
Yeah.
No,
I'm literally just curious, just because I've never really been in a band where like the only style bands I've been in have either been like bands where if it's original, I mean literally everybody sits in a room and and then writes the whole song like rock and roll style bands, or like cover bands where everybody's just trying to, okay, these are the important parts. How do we arrange it together? I've never done what you're talking about, so it's intriguing.
It is challenging, and sometimes I wish we could all just get all 6 of us in a room and just jam for hours and write that way.
I am, but who can do that?
Right, it's really hard to find 6 people's time.
Yeah.
And the once or twice we've tried it, it can be frustrating because it's so many people and there's no clear direction. So
some people really want direction.
Yeah.
And some people want to spend time and figure out that perfect part, and some people just want what do you need?
Instant results.
Give it to you.
So we find this kind of in between where we bring, a verse and a chorus to the group, and we say, here's the idea. We just have to finish it. I don't ever want to make something 100% before I bring it to the band. Because then what are they there for? So at most, I'll complete a song 85 or 90%.
Yeah.
At most, but oftentimes it's like 60% when I bring it to the band.
Yeah.
Where it's enough that they can say, "Oh, I get what you're doing," and then we can finish it together.
Now, will you just again because of the engineering side, will you kind of make some basic rough tracks like on Pro Tools kind of and bring that into the band with some different parts?
I do it in Reason. So I'll program drums and synths. I'll almost make it like a hip hop song, put like hip hop grooves behind it.
Just to piss everybody off a little bit.
Well, no, just to kind of present my idea from a competing standpoint.
From a competing standpoint,
or from
I
an
love
opposite
that.
standpoint, and I'll say, all right, it's got this kind of, R&B kind of vibe, but we're a rock band.
Yeah.
And my initial idea was that, how do we?
But you
translate
do that
this
on purpose.
On purpose, to make it more well-rounded and to kind of explore.
So like you could make a rock groove, but that's not what you bring to them.
Not generally, no. It's all computer programming and Reason with synths, and then I figure out on guitar.
That's so cool.
When it works.
No, but I just love that idea of just, we're a rock band. This is the song I wrote. I'm gonna bring it in. This doesn't sound like a rock song.
Yeah.
But I wrote this for a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with it.
Yeah. Everything in opposites. Because then you just find something good.
Oh, I love that, man. That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other part of it is finding bandmates and musicians who understand my method and are happy to work that way. Because not everybody's going to want to come into a situation like this and be cool with me saying, hey, we're in E flat. Some people, well, I want to play in F sharp. It's like, sorry, man, I already wrote the song this way. So finding musicians that you get along with, people that you're also friends with outside of the band, so that you can be honest with each other.
Dude, I tell you what. So from being in the bands that I've been in, and from just meeting people, especially through doing these, the common consensus I've gotten with everybody that plays music for a living is that basically they don't really care how you play if the hang's not good. Like if you guys can't gel off stage and just hang out, like if you're a dickhead and you play great, like you probably can't be in the band.
Right. So I was doing a session.
Like
in
there are
Nashville.
very few people that get a pass for that.
It's true. It's true.
For not answering phone calls, for not showing up to rehearsal, late for gigs, being mean. But once they get there, they're amazing.
I have a friend, Charles Simon, and he was telling me he teaches lessons, and he's got this one student who, in his group class, was giving some guys a hard time, and pulled the kid aside, and the lesson of the day was, you got to be nice. Even if you're getting a little anxious, you got to be nice, because it doesn't matter if you're the best drummer. Yeah. Nobody's going to call you if you're not a fun hang.
I love that he took the kid aside.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's an amazing lesson. Who else is teaching kids in their music lessons those types of things?
Right.
It's not all just about the notes or the drums. It's about how you interact with other musicians.
That's it.
But another story on this, I was in Nashville a couple months ago doing a session, and after the session I went out for beer with a bunch of the musicians, and they were saying, yeah, down here you can just assume that everybody's fantastic. So you just find somebody that you like hanging out with.
Because they can't make it here if they're not great.
That's true, but everybody's great. Everybody in Nashville is a great player,
right,
but not everybody's fun to hang with.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying.
You got 6 guitar players to choose from. Who do you like hanging with the most?
Yeah, right.
And that's the guy you're going to hire, because that's the guy you go out with for a beer after the session, and that's what makes it fun.
Dude, that's cool. Well, I'll tell you what, let's play another one, and then we'll talk about your gear and then your whole recording side that you do.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, pick something.
I don't know, E minor?
Sure. Pick any kind of rhythm you want. dagger G there, man.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So let's talk about your extremely complex rig.
Oh yeah. So it takes hours to set up.
Dude, I just love that. Whenever people show up and they have just guitar, cable, amp, like yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, why do you play what you play, and what is it?
Oh man, well I'll start with the guitar. So just a Mexican Tele.
Mm-hmm.
I got this used for like $250.
Awesome.
You know, I got a setup just to keep it running, right? And
Yeah.
that's it, man. Just change the strings when I need to.
Yeah.
I don't like expensive guitars. You know,
So great.
it plays and it sounds fine. And you know, for me as a songwriter, I'm more concerned with the songs that I'm writing. And
Because that is kind of how you view yourself, right? Primarily.
Yeah. I guess more. I'm not a guitarist. I'm a musician.
Yeah.
I play the guitar.
Well, no, I'm just kind of, you said it, so I'm just kind of probing. You know what I mean? So like, that's just what you.
Yeah. I think, am I gonna write a better song if I spend $2,000 on a guitar?
No, you won't.
No. I mean, maybe when I go and record, it'll sound 1% better.
That's such a great thing to say.
It's just
true.
I think an expensive instrument is a distraction between me and the creative output.
That's interesting.
And also, pretty much everyone I know gets their guitar stolen after a gig at some point in their life. So I'm just like, I'm just prepared to have my stuff stolen from me. Not that I want that to happen, but
dude, that's so true, man.
I just don't want downtime. If this gets stolen, hopefully it doesn't, but I'll just go pick up another one for $200 somewhere, and who cares? I'm back on the road.
It's so practical. I love that. I love that. I doubt you feel that way about your amp, though.
So the amp, I did spend a little more money on $200 on this. This is a Vibrolux reissue. And I've only had it a little less than a year, but I really like it for the tremolo, the reverb, the spring reverb sounds awesome. I do usually have the pedal. I've got the switch pedal. So when I play live, I have that and a tuner. But that's it. That's all I use. I don't really have any effects pedals. Sometimes I have an OCD distortion for a little boost. But
in the band, you have another guitar player. Now, does that guitar player have a whole smorgasbord of sounds to go through?
He's got a ton of pedals.
Yeah.
I don't even understand what he's got going on.
Yeah.
But because he takes a lot of the leads, he paints a lot of the picture, a lot of the color.
Yeah.
So he's constantly switching, and he's got all the delay pedals. And,
who is that guitar player, by the way?
Paul Mercer.
I don't know him.
Okay, so he's also an engineer.
Okay.
Yeah. So so the two of us together, we collaborate on different things, and creating that sonic landscape is something that we collaborate on. It's really cool.
So, all right. So I mean, Fender, tuner, cable, Fender.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds great. You can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. I'm the rhythm guitarist in the band.
Yeah.
I don't do the leads, and even if I'm painting a little bit of a picture, it's just more in the
that's kind of what you
fingers.
Yeah, that's kind of what you do in the band, is you're kind of creating that what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, not ambiance, but like
atmosphere.
The atmosphere.
Depth.
Depth.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, sometimes I'm just playing rhythm guitar. I'm playing just straight, simple, open chords in the bottom, and I'm just strumming as hard as I can to just fill it out, make it big, create the pocket.
Yeah.
If I'm at the top, then I'm playing more dynamics in my hand. Rise and fall.
Gotcha.
To try and make it pulse a little bit. And, and cascade, and it's all clean channel.
Yeah.
So that really you hear all the overtones. I do turn up, when I play live, I turn up the volume because it's a tube amp. So I want to saturate the tubes, and I want to get a little bit of that buzziness where people think that I'm just playing clean, and they're like, "Hey, your amp is breaking up." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
It's a tube amp.
That's why I have it.
I want it just to break up, so when I dig in hard, I can get that crunch, but it leaves enough headroom in the tubes where I can create that rise and fall dynamically.
Yeah.
And I try to do it opposite. So if the drummer is loud at the beginning of the measure and then he gets softer, I start soft at the beginning of the measure and get louder.
Yeah.
So that it cascades and spins. And
all right. So can we switch gears and go into recording a little bit?
Recording, sure.
All right. So I want to talk about how you record guitar in general. But first, so I know you've been at Stages, kind of freelanced it off and on for like a year, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And where else can people find you? Where else do you kind of...
Or
is that pretty much the main spot right now?
That's pretty much where I go. I mean, it's a great studio with everything I've ever dreamed of. So I bring all my work up there. And
it literally couldn't be nicer.
Yeah, it's one of the nicest studios I've ever been in.
Like anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah. So if you guys don't know of Stages, you should definitely check it out. Call him.
That's right.
Yeah, the first video I saw that you were doing the audio on, it was with Freed playing bass. With what was that drummer's name?
Dimitri Fantini.
Yeah, that was such a wild video, man. And the sound was great in that video.
Thanks,
yeah, no, I really liked it.
That's those guys. They're great musicians. I just pressed record.
Yeah, I have not met Dimitri's name, right?
And he's been playing drums for Pocket Bells this month. We hired him to do all the drumming for our gigs this month.
Is it like he came into the studio and then you were like,
I needed a drummer for some gigs.
Like that guy.
And he gave me his card, and I was like, I have a feeling we'd be calling you.
Yeah.
And I ended up needing him for a couple gigs.
Yeah.
And he's great. He's so fun to work with.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Freed is such a cool guy.
What a musician.
Dude, Freed's a beast.
If I could have a tenth of his talent.
Yeah, Freed is such a beast, man. So how'd you get into recording? You're just trying to write tunes?
When I was in maybe as early as middle school, I remember I must have been like 13. I remember going and buying a microphone. And it was a vocal mic. It wasn't an SM58, but something similar to that. And eventually I got one of those Tascam 4-track.
It wasn't one of the Radio Shack ones with the cord attached to it?
It was a little nicer than that. It was an Onyx. It was like an Onyx version.
Oh, an Onyx, okay.
The Onyx version of a 58. And eventually I got one of those Tascam recorders, and I just plugged it in. I just started overdubbing, and I must have been 13.
Right.
And when I was about 12, I remember buying a CD and seeing the liner notes, recorded by, mixed by, produced by, mastered by, edited by. And I remember thinking, like, this is a great band. I like these songs. Who are all? And I had this sense that, all right, these are people who work in a studio. What does that mean? What is that?
Yeah.
And when I was 13, I don't even think we had the internet in my house at that time, because it's going back a number of years.
Yeah.
And I kind of started getting this concept of what a recording studio was, and I got fascinated by it. And my dad's an audiophile. He's not a musician, but he's got great speakers. And I have these memories when I was like 6 or 7. He got a subwoofer, and I remember him explaining to me, well, the subwoofer's for the low frequency, and here's this speaker takes off the grill, and this is a tweeter for the high frequency. So from a very young age, I had this understanding of that music not only existed in terms of the tone of an instrument, but it existed in bands of frequency.
In part, yeah.
And as a 7-year-old, to understand that concept, it meant nothing to me then. And now looking back on it as an adult, I'm like, holy crap, that was a defining moment in my life.
Yeah, because would he say things like, listen to the guitar, it's here. Listen to the trumpet, it's here.
Right. The high frequency is produced by a different component of the speaker than the mid-range.
Yeah.
And the subwoofer, the low frequency, is an entirely separate unit. And at the time, I was already taking piano lessons, so I started to connect, like, well, okay, these low notes, they're going to be produced by all 3 speakers. You're still going to have some of those frequencies are still coming out of the tweeter, even though it's the lowest note on the piano.
Yeah.
So it got me interested in it. And then when I was in college, I had like I had just the audio in on my laptop. And I would have all the kids on the floor in my dorm that played guitar would come into my dorm, and we'd hang out, and I would just record them with the single mic that I had.
Yeah.
And I just knew I wanted to be working in studios for my career.
Yeah.
And I just kept working at it until, after 10, 15 years, the pieces
Did you start like
together.
interning at some local studios, or like how'd you kind of get on the scene?
So outside of the dorm room, my first official job, I got a job working in the on-studio what do you call it? The studio that was in the music department at Towson University.
Gotcha. Okay, so you went to Towson.
I went to Towson. I majored in classical performance.
Okay.
But they had just built a studio there in the music building, so I became just like a staff engineer there.
Yeah.
Where I would assist I completed the class, so I would assist some of the kids that were in the class.
Gotcha.
Right out of school, I ended up renting a commercial building and setting up my own studio. And I did that for 5 years.
Wow.
But
what was that called?
That was called Negative Space Studios.
Okay.
And I did that 5 years, and I was breaking even, which was great. But I wanted to do some equipment upgrades.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. So then I went and I worked in Mobtown Studios. I closed my own space, sold some equipment, and brought some of it over to my house, so I would just have a mixer in my apartment. And then I just started working at Mobtown for a little over 2 years. I worked there.
How'd you like Mobtown?
It was great. It was great. Awesome team of people, and they just have such an amazing resume of artists that have come out of that studio.
They do, man.
So I'm very fortunate to work with them. And then they have become now more of like an online provider of audio work, so they don't have a physical building, and that's when I went over and started working at Stages.
Wait a minute, they don't have a physical building anymore?
They don't, no.
How do they do it? Explain that to me.
It's all just online. So people might record at home. many people have home studios, and they can just send their session files to Mobtown
And they
via the
assemble
cloud,
it.
and then they can mix it remotely.
Wild. So bands are not in the same room anymore then.
That's true, and I have clients who do that too, who they've recorded everything at home, and then they send me this hodgepodge of tracks and say, "This is the song," and I pull into Pro
And you
Tools,
got to put them together.
and I have to figure out how to make it work, and it can be challenging.
I bet.
Some people who record at home are amazing, and it's amazing what they can do in a home studio. And some people, it takes a little more finesse to kind of make. They've got 3 guitar tracks, but they all sound different. How do I make those guitar tracks play nice?
Well, especially when it's like, how many takes do you have to get? In other words, like, not everybody's getting the finished track except their part.
Right.
You know? And
Yeah.
and so and I'm assuming you at least have a scratch drum track or something, and bass at least. You know, but for the most part, I think people would play different stuff if it was finished except for their part.
Right. Or if the whole band is just in the room.
Sure.
You know, like that's why I like working with bands at the studio. It's got this huge 700 square foot live room.
Yeah.
Everybody's there. Eye contact.
Yeah.
I believe that the microphones can record eye contact.
All right, let's go deep on that.
Yeah.
All right. So you prefer having live bands in rooms?
I do. I'm happy to work in any capacity that somebody wants to hire me. But the perfect situation is where the whole band is in the room, where you can block out a whole week in the studio to record multiple songs, and you start to develop momentum and a vibe in the room, and everybody's vibing off each other, and that eye contact. You know, when you're playing a part and you're really digging it, and you're looking at your drummer, and then he just hits that crash cymbal, and these amazing moments present themselves.
Sure.
But you have to be able to look at each other.
Okay, so let's go into that. So if you have a large enough space, like you do at stages, to make eye contact, do you make everybody set up in a circle, like fish style?
You could.
Like, what do you prefer?
I love that. What I'll do is I'll have the drummers in the live room, and we use the live room.
Like as opposed to the line, like you're playing live.
Right. Like, if a band asks to record that way, of course I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Because the most important thing is that the band is comfortable.
Yeah.
They have to sit in that room and feel good about the way they're playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, well, I put the amp there because that's how I do it. That's not
If they're
how I
used to
approach
hearing
it.
the bass over here,
Then put it over there.
yeah, and don't have it run at their face. Yeah.
But if a band doesn't have a preference, we have isolation rooms. So I'll put every person physically in the same room, but their amp will be in an isolation room with the door closed.
And that's
with
ideally
headphones.
how you like to do it.
Ideally, because that way you get separation.
Yeah.
And if the guitarist makes a mistake,
You don't get mic bleed.
there's no mic bleed. He can just punch in that note that he
Yeah.
messed up, and
Yeah.
it's all isolated.
And then does everybody get?
Yep. So we create headphone mixes, and everybody can dial in their own separate headphone mix. So the bass player can turn himself up,
Yeah.
but maybe he doesn't need to hear the lead guitar to know where he is in the song. So we can turn the lead guitar down and focus only on what he needs. But the lead guitar player might do the opposite. And
Interesting.
it's all just routed through the console so that everybody can have that total flexibility to set it up. And I always ask everybody after like every other take, how's the headphone mix?
Yeah.
Because it's the most important thing. What are you hearing? Because it's
Yeah.
all what you're reacting to. And I think a lot of times people overlook that. Like, oh yeah, I hear it. I'm like, okay, you hear it, but is it good?
Yeah.
Is your headphone mix exciting? I'll put reverb on the vocals.
Yeah.
I don't record the reverb, but I just put
I
it
want
in
it
the
for
headphones.
you, so you have a little moisture.
It's fun, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what singer doesn't like singing like they're in a giant hall? I mean, it makes it fun.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we don't have to record that reverb. We can add reverb again later, but we can just put it through the headphones just so it feels like we're making music.
Yeah. Now, all right. I'm gonna talk some questions here. So let's talk guitars.
Yeah.
So recording guitars, you like jacked up tube amps in an isolation booth
Yeah.
with what type of mics and what kind of placement? What is your kind of thing that you? Where's your starting point that you like people?
Every song is different. And if I have a band that wants to do 5 songs with me, I might change the setup from song to song because, you know, you have to listen to what the song is saying.
Yeah.
A song is going to, the problems are all going to solve themselves if you're just listening to what the song is telling you. But that said,
Why do I ask stupid questions? Yes, of course that makes sense.
But that said, like if it's an indie rock band, they're probably going to want a close mic sound, you know, where it's real, the close mic where
Right here.
meaning that the mic is
Yeah,
right
yeah,
in front.
yeah.
That's the most traditional way of doing it. And for that, I would use 2 mics, typically an SM57, which is a dynamic mic, and often a Royer 121, which is a ribbon mic.
Gotcha.
And the ribbon mic has a darker, throatier kind of sound, whereas the 57 is more bright and attacky.
And both of them would be right up on the.
Both of them right next to each other. so that they're capturing the sound at the same time, and you blend the two of them together. So the 57's getting all the bite and attack and all the overtones of the harmonics, and the 121, the ribbon mic, gets more of the warmth and the width of the bottom of the sound.
Interesting.
And you put them together, and then and I'll EQ it a little bit. There's usually some frequencies you might have to boost or pull to really get it to shine. Yeah. And then it's like, all right, there you go. That's a guitar sound.
Gotcha. Now, what are your preferred amps in the studio? Like, what do you think that always sounds good, and what are some ones that maybe you didn't like, or one in particular that someone brought in and you were like, holy shit, that thing's awesome?
Man, again, it's like every song is different. I love tube amps. Yeah. I love the idea of saturation. The first point of sound, or the first point is the guitar. The second point of sound is the amp. And how are you, the gain staging, where are you pushing the tubes? If it's a master volume amp, you've got your input and your output, and trying to blend those things. I love vintage amps. Old Fenders, old Marshall Plexis, old amp hegs, Fender Bassmans. Those amps are just awesome.
They're just
awesome. I mean, like, you can record it the most wrong way possible, and it's still going to sound great because the amps are designed. It's awesome. The circuits are great.
Well, okay, another question. So when you're using vintage gear like that, do you have power attenuators to make them run at the lower voltage?
No, I just turn them all the way up.
You just turn them all the way up? Yeah, because aren't those vintage ones, they're not supposed to really be 120?
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I've never heard that.
Oh, see? You learned I'm learning a lot.
I'm very glad to learn. Yeah.
So not just vintage amps, but basically, but this was true in vintage amps especially, but even newer Class A tube amps, they don't want to be at 120.
So what do you run them at?
116, 118, some even as low as 112 or 113. And so I've had people come in here. If you want to see a good one, check out Matt Berry, of an old one that goes back. He's got a Dr. Z Z-Rec. Everywhere he goes, he brings one of these power attenuators, and it shows you the power coming out of the wall, and he knows what that amp likes it at. I forget what his number was, but you can change it. So you can say, okay, we're sitting at 120, and this is what it sounds like. And you can hammer into it, and you drop it down to 116 or whatever, and you hit it, and it's a different amplifier. It's different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I've never done that. That's very cool.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
go home and check that out, because apparently I had never heard about that either. I just assumed power was power, but then it makes sense. Like, these are analog devices, it's tubes, it's literally just glass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is not, there is no processed signal. So of course, if the voltage coming in or out is higher or lower, of course it's going to affect the sound.
And that's kind of a question that people ask me, well, why do I want to record on a large format console when I have an 8-channel interface in my basement? It's like, great, your interface is fine, it's a digital unit. The console, it's electricity, it's voltage.
Yeah.
It's voltage on every single channel.
And you can hear it.
Yeah, it just makes it sound better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd never even thought about that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're recording a whole band, I might have 20, 25 mics out. It's 25 channels of voltage saturation.
Yeah.
That just imparts more sonic excitement into the audio.
Gotcha. So at stages, the board, I forget whether it's A or B. So there's an analog board, and then there's a digital board.
They're both analog.
They're both analog.
So we have an SSL that does have digital components where it is interfaced with the computer, so you can actually control Pro Tools from the console, but the actual audio circuits in that board are analog as well.
Gotcha.
I work on the API board because I love the sound of the API. That's my style. It's all analog. It's just 32 channels of analog recording.
That's awesome, dude.
It's great. It's really great.
And so when you do get those old vintage amps, you just turn them all the way up in an ISO boost?
I turn them up to where the saturation makes sense for the song. Because if you go past a certain point, they start to be very distorted. And if you're doing a hard rock band, that's what you need.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing an atmospheric indie band, which I do a lot of, well, then maybe you only need to turn it up 30%.
Yeah.
Where you're still getting saturation, but it's still clean.
Yeah.
So, and every song is different as well. And I almost want to be somewhere slightly different on the dial for each song.
Sure.
If we're doing 5 songs, I don't want the same guitar sound in every song.
Right.
That's just a little annoying.
Yeah. No, I get you. And then when you do, I'm sure you experiment all the time, but when you do drums, do you favor like a minimalistic, feel the room kind of approach, or do you favor like a every drum's got a mic kind of thing so you can have more control?
Again,
or,
it depends on the genre. If I'm doing a jazz band, 3, 4, maybe 5 mics is all you need on the drums, or even 1. But if I'm doing,
where would the 1 be?
Anywhere. You can put it in front, put it far away. Sometimes I put it on the floor in front of the kick drum, but slightly off center, so it's still pointing at the snare a little bit.
Interesting.
Or you can put it directly over the snare. Then you don't get a ton of kick drum.
You can just go as bananas as you want.
You can. But I find that most of my clients are looking for a produced radio sound. Mm-hmm. And in that case, I'm going to go anywhere from 10 to 13 mics on the drums. To capture what I know my clients' expectations are going to be once we get to the mixing phase. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot you can do. I often do stereo overheads, stereo room mics, 2 on the kick, 2 on the snare. Sometimes I do like a floor mic that's kind of in that position I'm talking about where it's like off center from the kick drum, kind of pointing towards the snare.
Yeah.
And I measure the height of my overheads and that floor mic, so they're all equidistant from the center of the snare.
Of course you do, dude. Of course you do.
Yeah.
So, well, that's why your stuff sounds so good. I mean, I'm sure I definitely get the vibe from you that like you are into it.
I live and breathe it.
And obviously your ears are fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Like it's so. How can people book time with you? Like, what should people do?
Well, you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, or you can call Stages directly and just ask for me. Yeah.
And what about Pocket Bells? When are you playing next? Where can people find your stuff?
So this weekend we're playing, Friday night we're playing at Pearl Street Warehouse in D.C.
Okay.
And Saturday night we're playing at the Foundry, which is a side stage of the Fillmore in Philly.
Very cool.
So that's this weekend. We're out there.
Awesome. So how often do you guys gig?
This month we have 4 gigs this month. Next month we have a couple weeks off. We're only doing 1 gig next month. Mm-hmm. So it depends. It can vary, anywhere from 1 to a half dozen gigs in any month. But we are trying to start ramping that up towards the end of the year. I'd like to be able to do 50 to 70 dates next year if we can swing it. But that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and we'll see. We're working with a manager.
I was going to say, how do you do your booking?
We have a manager who's been handling a lot of that for us.
Yeah.
And we've been working with him 6 to 8 months. So we're just now starting to really develop those workflows to where we're like, all right, how can we really branch out? Because we don't want to play Baltimore more than once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Because it's like, who's going to come out to see us once a month? Doesn't matter how good your band is.
That's true, man.
Nobody's going to see the same band every month.
It's true. I mean, you can't show up every Friday and expect everybody to come out.
So we're trying to just expand our markets, DC, Philly. Hopefully we get up to New York and New Jersey later this year. Mm-hmm. So it's a process, and it takes some time, but it's exciting. It's fun.
Awesome. Well, anything else we left out you want to go over?
Man, no, I think that's my life.
That's your life? Well, dude, I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to coming. I hope to be able to come into Stages soon and make a recording with you.
Yeah, I hope so, man. We should definitely do it.
Yeah, dude, I'm working on it. And like I said, your stuff sounds good, and if you have any, we'll be sure to link it up so you guys can listen to Pocket Bells.
That sounds great.
But very nice to meet you, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a lot of
Great
fun.
to be here.
Evan Kornblum, everybody.